2 hours after burying my husband, his phone rang, and that sound sliced through me like a knife cutting into open flesh. The house still smelled of people, of tears, of cold coffee forgotten on the table. The hallway was filled with shoe marks on the wooden floor, the living room rug crushed from so many relatives walking in and out, offering hugs that didn't land anywhere inside me. The funeral wreaths people brought were still propped against the wall, too plastic, too fragrant for a day that felt so absurd. I could smell the sweet scent of the flowers mixed with the scent of Marcus's suit still hanging behind the bedroom door, as if he were going to wear it again tomorrow. I was sitting on the couch, sunken into the same spot where he used to watch games, my black dress wrinkled, my empty hands resting on my lap. The coffee table still had 3 used cups, a mug with the last sip of coffee Tamika made for me, the one I never even touched, and a crumpled napkin where someone wrote, "My condolences," as if that covered anything at all. The wall clock ticked too loudly. Each tick reminded me that time didn't stop just because my life had. That's when the phone rang. Not just any ring, not just any sound, his ringtone. I knew because that ringtone was set only for him. I had picked it myself months ago, laughing, saying, "This way I'll never miss your call, even in the middle of chaos." The irony was suffocating. The sound echoed through the room like a siren. My whole body hardened. Even the air seemed to hold its breath with me. It took me a few seconds to locate where the sound was coming from. It felt like it came from everywhere at once. My heart started running ahead of the rest of me. I looked toward the side table. My purse was thrown there carelessly, open, a corner of the phone sticking out. I knew it couldn't be him. I knew. My brain knew. I had seen his body. I had held his cold hand inside that coffin. I had thrown the last rose. I had signed that damn paper at the hospital. I had heard the doctor say there was nothing more we could do. But the body doesn't control hope. My fingers moved faster than reason. I pulled the phone out with trembling hands, almost knocking over a glass. The screen lit up, and when I saw the name, the world inside me flipped upside down. Love. That's how Marcus's number was saved. Still saved like that. I hadn't had time or courage or clarity to change it. My heart beat so hard, my ribs hurt. For 1 second, I swear, my body believed. Somewhere deep in a place that doesn't think, I had the absurd feeling that all of this was a mistake, that someone mixed up charts, that I'd wake from a nightmare, that he'd walk through the door complaining about something trivial. I brought the phone to my ear on instinct, almost childlike, as if I didn't think too hard, life might snap back into place. I answered. "Hello?" My voice came out rough, scraped. I didn't know if I was speaking to a dead man, a living one, the past, or my own hallucination. My heart was beating so fast I could hear it in my ears, along with the faint static of the call. On the other end, for a second, nothing. Just silence. A full silence, cut only by the sound of someone breathing. I held my breath, waiting to hear his voice, the voice I knew better than my own. My mind braced itself for some kind of miracle, some logical explanation, anything that might tell me, no, it can't be true that Marcus is gone. But the voice that answered wasn't his. It was a woman's. Hello? Young, soft, steady, not the confused hello people give when they dial the wrong number. It was intimate. It had a kind of calm that didn't match the chaos of my house. It didn't match the wilted bouquet near the door, the heel I'd thrown off as soon as I got home, the photos of him scattered over the table, smudged from so many hands holding them to remember. For a second, I thought maybe someone else called me and this was just cruel coincidence. But then I looked again at the screen. It was Marcus's contact, his number, the same one I dialed crying the night he had the heart attack, the same one the doctor asked for at the hospital. The same one I saved with that word in all caps, love. And the person answering wasn't him. Hello? she repeated, a bit more firmly, like someone used to answering that phone. My whole body went cold. The hand holding the phone began to sweat. My neck tingled, my legs weakened, as if the floor suddenly tilted beneath me. The room, once just sad, now felt wrong, as if someone had moved things while I was at the cemetery. I looked around, stupidly, as if I'd find Marcus leaning against a wall, playing the worst joke imaginable. No one. Just the TV off, the curtain half open showing a gray evening, and the crooked picture frame I hadn't had the strength to fix after the last visitor left. Who is this? I managed to say, my voice thin, cracking, gripping the phone so hard my fingers ached. She laughed. A short, quiet laugh, not mocking, familiar, the kind of laugh someone gives when they feel comfortable with the person they're calling. And before telling me who she was, she said his name the way someone says a name they say often. Marcus? Can you hear me? In that exact instant, before she said anything else, I knew something bigger than death had just shifted out of place. I didn't know how far I'd fall, but I'd already begun to drop. I still had the phone pressed to my ear when the whole living room seemed to breathe in a strange way. It wasn't just that woman's voice that disoriented me. It was the brutal contrast between the chaos inside me and the casual way she said my husband's name. A name I had whispered for the last time just hours earlier while holding his cold hand inside a coffin. Marcus? Can you hear me? Her question echoed in my mind like it bounced off the walls and came back louder. The way she said his name, soft, comfortable, intimate, was completely incompatible with the fact that Marcus was buried under fresh dirt. The truth was standing in front of me like an animal I didn't know whether to attack or run from. For a few seconds, I simply didn't answer. My chest rose and fell so slowly, it felt like my body was trying not to exist. My tongue stuck to the roof of my mouth. My heart was beating like it had just found a new reason to hurt, a reason that had nothing to do with his death and everything to do with the life he'd had without me. Her voice came again, this time more assertive, like someone used to calling a man to attention over the phone. Marcus? Baby? Talk to me. Baby. The word pushed through my skin like a long nail being driven in slowly. It wasn't just the sound of the word, it was the familiarity packed inside it. The fact that she said it without hesitating, as if she said it to him every day. As if that was the voice he heard before going to sleep, or before leaving to come see me, or right after kissing me goodbye. I swallowed hard. My throat burned. Who is this? I finally said. My voice came out thinner than I wanted, a trembling thread of sound like it was being pulled out of a closed box. She paused, a small silence. The kind of silence that means someone just realized something. Oh, she murmured. So this isn't Marcus. A shiver climbed my spine. The whole room felt tilted forward, like it was waiting for her answer along with me. No, it's not. Another pause, longer this time. And then she said her name with a painful simplicity. My name is Aaliyah. Her name fell over me like an object I'd never seen before, but somehow always been inside my house. The way she said it, quiet, careful, but not guilty, made it clear she wasn't a stranger in his life, she was just a stranger in mine. I closed my eyes for a moment, my hand squeezing the phone until my fingers hurt. I felt the tips of my fingers tingle, the same feeling I had when the doctor said the words, "time of death." It was like my body recognized trauma by touch. And you are... Her voice came hesitant, but with the kind of hesitation that has weight. She was putting pieces together. So was I. Both of us at the same time, but for completely different reasons. I'm his wife, I answered, feeling every syllable slam against my chest like a hammer. Aaliyah didn't say a word. And in that silence, everything was there. I walked over to the window without knowing why. Maybe because I needed air. Maybe because I couldn't stand still. Maybe because the sun was dying outside the same way something inside me was dying slowly, without resistance. When she finally breathed again, and I heard it, it sounded broken, like a sob stuck in her throat. "Oh my God," she whispered, more to herself than to me. "He didn't tell you anything?" Her question hit me like a slap. Not because I expected anything different, but because she said tell, as if she'd been expecting him to explain himself to me, as if there had been a plan, an agreement, a future. My chest burned. "Aaliyah," I said, feeling my voice waver for the first time since the call began, "Marcus died yesterday. I buried him today." Her silence wasn't just surprise. It was the silence of someone whose whole storyline just collapsed. Her breathing changed sharply. I heard it. My ear pressed to the phone caught every tremor. "He died?" She said the word like she was swallowing glass. "How?" "Heart attack," I answered, feeling my vision blur. "It was fast." She cried. But it wasn't polite crying. It wasn't a controlled tear. It was the crying of someone who loved him, someone who lost him, someone who understood she really lost him. And the worst part? Her grief sounded so real, so raw, so intimate, that it made me sick to realize Marcus was the center of two women's lives at the same time. "I talked to him yesterday," she said, sobbing. "Yesterday. He said he was coming over today. He said he missed me." The sentence hit the bottom of my stomach like a stone. He missed me. He missed me. I never heard that from him. Not once. The room seemed to spin. I held onto the table to keep from losing my balance. "Aaliyah, how long have you two—" I couldn't finish. The word "together" got stuck in my throat like it had edges. She answered with the devastated honesty of someone who has nothing left to hide. 8 months. 8 months of a parallel life. 8 months of me thinking he was tired from work. 8 months of rushed dinners, distracted kisses, lukewarm excuses. 8 months of me trying to revive a marriage that was already buried before he was. I couldn't speak for a few seconds. The silence between us felt almost alive, the kind of silence that grows roots. "He said he was confused," she went on, crying harder, "that he needed time to figure things out, that you were a good person, but he didn't want to hurt you. He said he owed you a talk. A big talk." I swallowed hard. Marcus had written the same thing in the email. That talk. The talk that never happened because he died before he was man enough to have it. Aaliyah let out a long, exhausted sob, completely undone. "I never wanted to compete with you. I didn't know he was still with you like that. I didn't know he loved you." Her pain cut into me in a strange way, because something inside me, something I didn't expect, began to understand that we were both the result of a man who never managed to be whole. I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of that moment. "Aaliyah," I said softly, with a truth that sliced right through me, "he destroyed everything before you. I'm just picking up the rubble." She cried again. I didn't. Because for the first time that day, for the first time in months, I felt something inside me straighten. It wasn't strength. It wasn't revenge. It was clarity. The worst part of the pain had passed. Now I was facing what was left. And what was left was me. The call with Aaliyah ended, but what stayed wasn't silence. It was a fall. A slow, continuous fall that felt like it was pulling my insides down with it. I stood there for a few seconds with the phone still pressed to my face, as if some fragment of her voice were still stuck to my skin. And then, as if my body were trying to run from itself, I stepped back, then again, until my back hit the living room wall. It was there, against that cold wall behind me, that the entire truth finally dropped on me at once. It wasn't just the cheating. It wasn't just the secrecy. It wasn't just her. It was the fact that the man I had buried that afternoon, with tears still drying on my face, wasn't the man I had loved. Or maybe he was, but never completely, and the part tearing me apart wasn't his death. It was the parallel life I had just discovered. I took a deep breath, or tried to. The air came in, but felt like it scratched on the way down. I walked toward the kitchen because my body needed to move. The floor still had a drop of dried coffee near the fridge, the mug I'd left there when I rushed out for the funeral, the open fridge with a half-eaten container of foods he'd asked me to save because he'd eat it later. Later. That word now felt like a cruel joke. When I reached the sink, I placed both hands on the countertop. The metal was cold, anchoring me in a world I still recognized, but my mind didn't want to stay there. It began spinning on its own, like a film playing without pause. The work trips, the late nights, the messages he deleted too quickly, the perfume that wasn't mine, the lukewarm excuses, the nights he slept turned toward the wall. I remembered everything as if I were watching scenes from a life that wasn't mine, even though it was. A life where I was an extra, where he wrote the script, where I was only part of the image he showed the world, not part of the life he lived when his phone buzzed in his pocket. The truth started arranging itself inside me, like pieces that, for the first time, clicked together without my permission. She said he'd fix things. She said he'd tell you. She said he loved you. She said he missed me. Aaliyah's words echoed like they'd been trapped in the phone and were now leaking out into the kitchen air. I realized my hand was on my chest, not because I couldn't breathe, but because I needed to hold something that felt like it was cracking. That's when I looked at the bottom drawer of the counter, the drawer he called his mess. I hadn't opened it in years because I respected his space, because I trusted him, because for me, loving someone always came with the verb allow. But that drawer, tonight, it felt like it was calling me. I knelt down slowly and pulled the handle. The wood made a dry sound, and the drawer opened. Inside was what was left of my ignorance, and what was left of his truth. The second phone. I recognized it instantly. Marcus always said it was for work, for running around, for not mixing business with personal life. I accepted it. I always accepted. I picked it up with both hands, as if it were fragile or dangerous. The screen was smudged with fingerprints. It smelled like him. It was the phone of someone alive, not someone dead. I sat on the kitchen floor because my legs couldn't hold me. I turned the phone on, the screen lit up, and the wallpaper was her, Aaliyah, smiling. Smiling the way he hadn't looked at me in a long time. Maybe never like that. My heart lurched so hard I pressed my lips together to keep any sound from coming out. I opened the messages. The first one was from yesterday, hours before the heart attack. "Baby, come early. I miss you. I bought your favorite wine. Don't forget, today is our day." Hours. Day. A wave of heat shot up my face. It was indignation mixed with humiliation, anger mixed with grief, shock mixed with clarity. I scrolled further. There were everything. Photos, plans, dates, nicknames, confessions. Silences I recognized. Because while I was asking him if he wanted dinner, he was having dinner with her. While I asked, "Are you okay?" he was replying, "I'm on my way," just not to me. While I fell asleep waiting for him to come home, he was sleeping in her bed, or awake, talking to her, saying things he never said to me. My stomach twisted. My fingertips tingled. Tears came without warning, as if they had been stored somewhere deep inside me and were suddenly released. I cried quietly, making a sound I didn't know I could make. It wasn't the cry of loss. It wasn't the cry of betrayal. It was the cry of disorientation. The cry of realizing all at once that the person I loved most was also the one who deceived me most. When I opened my eyes again, I saw his jacket hanging on the chair. I walked over, reached into the pockets, and found the key and the receipt and the address of a place I had never been, but where he had been many times. I held all of it like it was the last layer of the lie, and that's when I heard myself say, not to him, not to her, but to myself, I need to see everything. It wasn't obsession, it wasn't revenge, it was survival. Because every woman knows, the pain only starts healing when the truth stops hiding. I stood up from the floor with the key in one hand, the receipt in the other, and his phone pressed to my chest, where I used to rest my head to sleep. And I realized that grief had just changed shape. I wasn't crying for Marcus anymore. I was crying for the marriage that never existed, and for the woman I was while I believed in him. I walked upstairs with the key, the receipt, and the second phone clenched in my hand as if they were evidence of a crime I had committed myself, because in a way, that's how my body reacted. I felt guilty for not seeing it earlier, for not sensing it earlier, for not asking earlier. And yet, I knew that even if I had asked, Marcus would have looked me in the eye with that same practiced calm and told me everything was fine. The truth was, he was far too skilled at hiding what he didn't want to show. And I was far too skilled at believing what I wanted to believe. When I stepped into the bedroom, the light was still off. Only the faint glow from the street lamp traced a sad yellow line across the bed. The mattress still had the indentation from his side, the mark of the last night I didn't know would be the last. His shirt from 2 days ago lay tossed on the armchair, the collar wrinkled, carrying a scent that no longer matched the man I thought I knew. I stood in the doorway for a few seconds. It was the first time since the burial that I actually saw that room as a physical place and not a tomb for my emotions. It was a room full of objects I had chosen. The blue quilt he pretended to hate but always pulled up to his chin. The bedside lamp he claimed was too dim but never replaced. The rug I bought alone on a day he had to stay late at the office. Everything there had been built by me and used by him. With a cold hand, I turned on the lamp. The warm light spread across the room, and suddenly the details jumped out as if shouting. His watch stopped. His sneakers half hidden under the bed. His wedding ring on the dresser as if he had forgotten to put it on that morning. Funny thing, Marcus never forgot to wear his ring. I walked over to the dresser and stared at it. The ring sitting there, quiet, heavy, abandoned. I ran my finger across it, slowly. That simple gesture brought back an automatic memory. All the times he came home, exhausted, tossing his wallet on the table. All the times he said, "Long day today." All the times I pretended to believe that exhaustion explained everything. The silence, the distance, the absence of us. And now I knew it wasn't exhaustion. It was occupation. He was too busy living a second life. I closed my hand around the ring, feeling the cold metal against the heat of my skin. And for the first time, it meant nothing. I set it back on the dresser, gently, like returning an object that no longer belonged to anyone. Then I noticed his coat hanging on the closet door, the same coat where I had found the key and the receipt. The coat he wore on the day he said he'd stay home because he was weak, feverish, not well enough to go out. The fever was a lie. The bed, too. I approached the coat like it was a sleeping animal I wasn't sure I should touch. I slid my hand down the heavy fabric and opened the zipper, feeling it resist, like reality itself resisting change. I checked the inside pocket, empty. Checked the other, and found what looked like a hotel key card. I inhaled deeply, 3 times, like someone preparing to dive into deep water. It was for the Sunrise Suites, the same name on the receipt. Confirmation. The floor seemed to sway. Before my body could buckle, I sat on the edge of the bed, right in the middle between his side and mine. For the first time, that division felt symbolic. It was as if I were sitting exactly where our 2 parallel lives met and broke apart. I placed the card, the key, and the second phone on the blue quilt and stared at them. They looked like items forgotten by someone who left in a hurry. And in a way, they were. I took a deep breath, trying not to panic. But panic didn't come. What came was clarity. A clarity so cold it almost burned. It was in that moment, on that bed, in that room, that the first real question rose inside me. Did I ever actually know the man I buried? Or did I bury a character? Did I bury the version he wanted the world to see? The version he kept alive for me while hiding the rest in receipts, secrets, and another woman's voice? My eyes filled with tears, but this time they didn't fall. They stayed there, waited, held, as if I were shifting from mourning his loss to mourning the loss of myself. I sat there for an amount of time I couldn't measure, staring at the evidence spread across the bed like pieces of a puzzle that finally made sense. And then my mind said, with a clarity sharper than grief, if he built an entire life away from you, then you have the right to know every inch of it. That was the first moment since the call that I actually felt something like power. Not revenge, not raw anger. Power. Power to know, power to look, power to rebuild the truth without asking permission. I wiped my face, gathered the objects again, and when I stood from the bed, I felt something else rise inside me. Something I hadn't realized had been asleep for a long time. And there, in that bedroom that still smelled of his absence, I made the first decision that had nothing to do with grief and everything to do with me. I was going to uncover the whole story, no matter who it hurt, including me. I walked downstairs slowly, each step echoing hollow beneath my feet, as if the house were listening. The key, the receipt, and the phone felt heavy in my hand, heavier than plastic and paper should ever feel. The living room looked bigger now, emptier, colder. The couch still had the imprint of one of the church ladies who'd sat there earlier, repeating phrases about faith I didn't have the strength to answer. The scent of the funeral flowers was changing. The sweetness had begun to sour, turning slightly nauseating. Grief has a smell, and this one was rotting fast. I sat on the couch gently, and for the first time since the burial, my entire body collapsed. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't make a scene. I just felt the weight. A weight that came from years, not just a day. I picked up his phone again. I traced my thumb across the smooth glass surface, as if touching it could bring me closer to some kind of answer. But the truth was, touching that phone made my skin crawl now. It felt like touching the skin of someone I thought I knew, but who had become a stranger overnight. Aaliyah's smiling face on the lock screen, that bright, intimate, confident smile, felt like mockery of my blindness. 8 months. 8 months, she said. 8 months of messages, secrets, trips, excuses, silent lies piling up inside a story I didn't know I was living in. I needed to breathe. I needed to understand. I needed to see from the inside out the things he had convinced me not to see. Then my eyes fell on the cabinet drawer, the one where I kept important documents, the drawer I organized every year. Marcus never touched it. He always said, "Paperwork gives me headaches," and he trusted me to handle it all. The irony, the same woman he deceived so deeply was the woman he trusted to keep his life in order on paper. I opened the drawer too hard. The folders shifted, papers scattered. I inhaled deeply, trying not to let anxiety run my body, but my hands were trembling. My mouth was dry. The floor felt too far away. I started pulling documents. Every sheet, every receipt, every handwritten note. Not to find proof against him. I already had enough of that. I was looking for proof about me. Because deep down, what I feared most wasn't discovering how much he lied. It was discovering how much I allowed myself to believe. I found old receipts. Lunch downtown with client, corporate dinner, field workshop. Explaining these expenses had always been easy for him. He spoke, and I accepted. That was my role. That's what they tell wives. Trust your husband. But now, reading the dates, the times, I saw patterns. Dates that matched the messages on his second phone. Impossible timestamps. Meetings scheduled at 11 p.m. Extra work on Sunday mornings. And the worst? Repeated charges from the same hotel where I had found the receipt in his jacket pocket. I took a breath so deep it made my ribs ache. I was on the edge of something I couldn't unknow. I needed something physical, something to anchor this emotional avalanche, so I walked into the kitchen, grabbed a large sheet of paper and a blue pen. At the table, I began an inventory. I wrote at the top, things that weren't coincidences, and I started listing. Business trip in March, he came home smelling different. Late meeting in May, he showed up with his shirt wrinkled and blamed bad traffic. Weekend at his mom's, he didn't answer my calls all afternoon. My father's birthday, he forgot. And when I sent a photo of the party, he took 2 hours to reply. Sudden increase in field work. Messages deleted too quickly. The way he stopped ordering dinner with me. The way he came home exhausted, but without the smell of the office. The distant look when I touched his hand. How he avoided eye contact when I asked, "Are you happy?" The list kept going. And going. And going. Each item was a blade, cutting deeper. Not because I was discovering lies, but because I was discovering how much I silenced myself to preserve the image of a good husband he never actually earned. I felt a soft touch on my shoulder. I turned, startled. It was my Aunt Lorraine, who had stayed to help with the last bits of the funeral arrangements. She looked at me with a mix of worry and recognition. Recognition because older women always recognize the pain of younger women. "Sweetheart, you're very quiet," she said softly. I showed her the paper, this list, this emotional autopsy. She read it slowly. Her eyes filled. "How many times did you swallow all this alone?" Her question pierced me with buried truth. I took a breath. "All of them," I answered. I thought that was marriage, that this was normal, that I needed to be patient, understanding, that if I held on long enough, he'd come back to me. Lorraine sat beside me and took my hand. Her palm was warm, steady, firm, the opposite of everything Marcus had been for months. "Women like you," she said, her voice measured, "grow up learning to suffer quietly. You grow up thinking love is something you endure. But love isn't supposed to be a test of endurance. Love isn't supposed to wear you down." And I cried. Not because she hurt me, but because her words were everything I needed before and never heard. I cried because I finally understood that the pain I felt had shape, name, and history. I cried because I realized I was grieving the Marcus I invented, not the Marcus he actually was. Lorraine took a deep breath, her expression the kind that comes from surviving emotional wars no one ever asks about. "Now that you know, now that you've seen, don't let yourself unsee it." I closed my eyes, pressing the paper to my chest. I wasn't going to unsee it. I wasn't going to go quiet. I wasn't going to shrink to fit the small space he left for me. For the first time, I was seeing myself. And that part of me, the part he never could touch, was finally awake. The phone vibrated again. I was still in the living room, my list of humiliations spread out in front of me, the paper wrinkled in my hands like the last scrap of my innocence. Aunt Lorraine had stepped away to check something at the door, giving me a silence I didn't even know I needed, a silence in which, for the first time, I was facing the truth not as a victim, but as the witness of my own story. And then the phone vibrated, the second phone, his phone. The vibration traveled across the table and into my bones like a warning, a signal, a summons. I recognized that vibration. It was the short one, the one he used for urgent conversations. My heart beat differently this time, not with hope, not with despair, but with a new, sharp clarity. The screen lit up. Aaliyah calling. Of course. She must have been in shock. She must have been desperate. She must have been trying to understand why Marcus hadn't shown up for their day, why he hadn't texted her, why he hadn't kept the promises he'd made. That realization almost stole my breath. I didn't want to answer. I didn't want to hear another truth. But there was something inside me now, something that no longer feared what hurt, that told me I had to hear it. I had to let the truth complete itself. I answered. Hello? Her breathing came first, shaky, fast, wounded. Marcus? She asked, her voice even more fragile than before. No, I said. It's me. Silence. A long, heavy silence. A silence so deep it felt physical. I could almost hear the exact moment her version of the story began to implode. You, she whispered, you're still there? I didn't say a word. My silence wasn't weakness anymore. It was structure. It was a space where truth had nowhere left to hide. Aaliyah inhaled, or tried. The sound came broken. I'm sorry. I know this is awful for you, but I don't know what to do. I don't know what to think. I don't know where to put this pain. I closed my eyes. That sentence, I don't know where to put this pain, struck something in me. It wasn't a lie. It wasn't arrogance. It wasn't manipulation. It was grief. Real grief. And it hurt to recognize that. Because in that moment, I realized we were both falling, just from different heights and for different reasons. Go ahead, I said. Tell me what you need to say. She hesitated, and then her voice opened like a wound that had been waiting months to be exposed. He told me things about you two, about me, about how he felt lost, torn, trapped. Cold spread up my spine. What things? I asked. Aaliyah sniffled, trying to steady herself. He said you were a good woman, that he respected you, but that he didn't feel alive with you. He said the routine had swallowed your marriage, that you lived like partners, not lovers. My chest tightened, not from jealousy, but from humiliation. Not humiliation of betrayal, humiliation of knowing he judged our marriage with someone who wasn't part of it. He said he admired you, but that he was tired of being the responsible one all the time. He said that with you, he felt the weight. With me, he felt the relief. My vision darkened for a moment. Responsible? Weight? Relief? It was as if Aaliyah were describing a marriage I never been in. His version, not mine. He promised me things, she added, crying again. Things I'm ashamed to repeat now. He said he would talk to you, that he just needed the right moment, that he wanted to be honest, but was afraid of hurting you. I let out a dry laugh. Not amused, not mocking, a laugh with no softness, the sound of someone who finally sees the stitching of a lie. He was already hurting me. I said. The difference is he didn't want to be seen doing it. Aaliyah's silence trembled. Then she said something I never expected. You must hate me. I breathed in slowly. No, I don't hate you. I don't even know you. She cried harder. I didn't know he was still really your husband. He told you two were basically over, that you slept in separate rooms, that you just hadn't finalized things because you were fragile. My stomach turned. Separate rooms? A marriage basically done? Still together only out of pity? All lies. We slept together. We planned things. We lived a life. Yes, imperfect, but real. I wasn't fragile. He was opportunistic. Now, she said, voice breaking, now I don't know who I was in all of this. I don't know if I was a partner, if I was used, if I was lied to. I don't know if he loved me or if I was just escape. I closed my eyes because we were both grieving, but not for the same man. I spoke slowly, my voice steady. Aaliyah, listen carefully. He destroyed everything before he died. I'm only picking up the pieces. You are too. Her breathing shifted, steadier, grounded in truth. I'm sorry, she whispered, for everything, truly. I am too. Not for him, but for me and for her. I hung up, and when I did, I realized my hands weren't shaking anymore. The pain was still there, but now it had edges. It had shape. It had meaning. It wasn't despair now. It was clarity. I wasn't falling anymore. I was standing. Slowly, painfully, but standing. After I hung up on Aaliyah, I sat there for a few minutes staring into nothing, the phone still in my hand. It felt like the house itself was suspended, waiting to see what I'd do next. The pain hadn't disappeared, but it had shifted. It wasn't the ripping kind anymore. It was deeper, quieter, like a bruise you press and instantly remember where you were hit. I placed his phone on the table beside my list of humiliations, the key, and the hotel receipt. It looked like a small altar of truth, a harsh, ugly altar, no flowers, no candles, but far more honest than the decorated coffin I had stood beside earlier that day. Aunt Lorraine returned from the door, watching me from across the room, not intruding, not leaving, simply keeping a vigil. Want a glass of water? She asked. I do, but not yet, I replied, surprised by how steady my voice sounded. She nodded. Some pains water can't touch. She sat in the armchair, not speaking, her silence like a guardrail in case I fell or in case I rose. I looked toward the stairs, then at the table, then at Marcus's laptop closed on the desk near the living room. Until today, that computer was his, a territory I didn't enter out of respect, trust, habit. But now, for the first time, it didn't feel like invasion. It felt like my right. I walked toward it slowly. Each step felt like the distance between the woman who accepted half-truths and the woman who wanted all of them. I sat down, ran my hand over the lid. The metal was cold, as cold as his hand at the hospital. You sure? Lorraine asked softly. Yes, I said. If there's more pain left, let it hurt all at once. I opened the laptop. The screen lit up asking for the password. Before, that would have been the end of it. I'd stop, respect the boundary, but boundaries made of lies deserve to be crossed. I tried important dates. Our anniversary? No. His birthday? No. I inhaled, closed my eyes, and heard Aaliyah's voice in my mind. He called me baby. My stomach flipped, but my mind sharpened. I typed baby, followed by the number he used for everything, his favorite basketball player's jersey number. Enter. The screen unlocked. It felt like opening a door he swore was locked. A bitter, grim satisfaction rose in my chest. The desktop was neatly organized, folders aligned, names generic. Projects, reports, personal one. The kind of tidiness people use to appear whole while hiding rot beneath it. I clicked the email app. The inbox was full of client messages, notifications, corporate chatter. Boring, normal, predictable. For a moment, I almost believed there'd be nothing else, almost let myself hope the lies stopped somewhere. But then I saw a folder on the left, Personal 2. My finger hovered over the mouse. A tiny part of me didn't want to see, but that part didn't rule me anymore. I clicked. A list of emails appeared, nearly all from the same sender, highlighted as if someone wanted to make sure I didn't miss the point. Aaliyah Green. I opened the first one. Months old. Subject, miss you. Inside, tenderness, intimacy, references to nights together, inside jokes, plans, affection he never shown me in forever. Words I never received, energy he never gave me. A version of him that lived fully with her while giving me breadcrumbs. A knot formed in my throat, but I didn't cry. Not now. I would see this through. I scrolled. I saw dates that matched his work dinners, restaurant reservations for nights I ate alone standing in the kitchen, photos with the same coat hanging in our bedroom right now. Every email was a line of script, a script he wrote with her while I unknowingly acted in a different play. I kept going until I found the drafts folder. I clicked. Only a few files, test messages, half-written notes, and one draft addressed to me. My blood ran cold. I opened it. Just one line. Danelle, we need to talk about something important. That was it. No explanation, no confession, no follow-through. He started and stopped. I stared at that single sentence for a long time, my heart beating slowly now, tired of racing. He was going to tell you, Lorraine said behind me, barely a whisper. Was he? I answered. Or did he just like imagining himself as the kind of man who might tell me someday? Because that's what it was. This draft wasn't proof of integrity, it was proof of procrastination. Proof of a man who enjoyed the illusion of honesty without paying the cost of it. Maybe he hoped for the right moment. Maybe he hoped I would make it easier. Maybe life would decide for him. Life did, just not in the way he imagined. I closed the laptop. No anger, no dramatic slam, just finality. Is it over? Lorraine asked gently. It is, I said. Everything I needed to see, I've seen. She placed a warm hand on my shoulder. I let her. And now? She asked. Now. That word carried weight. I looked at the table, the phone, the receipt, the key, the list, the closed laptop. It was like the completed file of an emotional crime scene. Now, I said, my voice stronger than I expected, I stop living the version he left me and start writing my own. I stood up, walked to the bookshelf, picked up the framed photo of us smiling at the beach, me in a light dress, him with his shirt open, sun on his face, the perfect image of a happy couple. I held the frame at eye level and said, not to him, but to myself, this was real for me, not for you, and I won't measure myself by your lack of truth anymore. I set the photo back, didn't smash it, didn't throw it away. It didn't deserve destruction, but it didn't deserve power either. I looked around the room. My legs felt heavy, my mind exhausted, but there was something solid inside me now, something that had survived the collapse. My center, my axis, me. For the first time, I was the only author of what came next, and the next chapter was already forming, rising from a place where pain and strength finally existed side by side. I was going to bury Marcus a second time, not in the ground, in the narrative he tried to leave behind, and this time, I would be the one throwing the last handful of earth.
The house was too quiet. Not the heavy silence of grief, that thick, wet silence that sits on your chest. This was a different silence. A silence of ending, of pages turning, of a room cleared after a storm. It felt like even the air inside the walls had shifted, like there was finally no lie left to hold up. I walked toward the bedroom slowly, the wood floor cool beneath my feet. The hallway felt narrower, yet inside me there was more space than there had been in months, maybe years. It was strange. I was exhausted but wide awake, tired but steady. Any woman who has ever loved wrong knows this exact place. The place where the wound still hurts, but no longer blinds. The bedroom door was half open. I pushed it with my fingertips. The lamp on the nightstand still glowed softly, lighting the bed that now felt like another country, a place I no longer lived in. The blue quilt was still there, but it didn't carry the shape of his body anymore. It carried only my story now, a story I was learning to read again. I walked to the bed and sat on my side, not out of habit, but out of choice. The other side felt as far away as the life he lived with someone else. A suitcase rested by my feet. Not an escape, a beginning, a small, simple beginning, but mine. I picked up the wedding ring from the dresser. The lamp's light hit the metal in a way that felt almost cruel, highlighting the shine of something that meant nothing anymore. I rubbed my thumb along its smooth, cold curve, remembering the day he slipped it on my finger, smiling like he was promising the world. A promise is only beautiful when it's whole. His had been half a promise, and half a promise never holds up a life. I closed my hand around the ring, felt its tiny weight, felt the enormous symbolism. Then, for the first time since the burial, I let out a breath that seemed to come from years inside my chest. Not a sad sigh, a clean one, a release. I stood up, walked to the window, pulled the curtain aside. The night was bright, a sky I hadn't noticed on the way home from the cemetery. Outside, life was still happening. Cars passing, windows glowing, families eating dinner, people laughing. The world was vast, alive, indifferent to the tragedy of my day, and somehow that was comforting. His pain had ended, but my story hadn't. I slid the ring off and let it fall into the small box where it had always been kept. The sound was quiet, a quick tap, but inside me, it thundered. It was the end, but it was also the beginning. I breathed deeply and looked around the bedroom one more time. There was nothing of his I needed to take. His clothes, his scents, his objects, all of it stayed where it belonged, the past. The only thing I was taking from that house was myself. I grabbed my suitcase, bent to zip it closed, and as it zipped, something inside me closed too. Not a door, but a cycle I had spent years trying to keep alive on my own. A cycle that didn't end because I failed, but because he never truly wanted to complete it. Before leaving, I walked through the living room slowly. I touched the framed photo of us on the shelf. The frame was crooked. I straightened it gently, not out of nostalgia, but out of respect for the woman who believed in that picture. She deserved that kindness. She had given everything she had. I looked at the photo for a long moment, and for the first time, I felt no anger, no longing, nothing for him. What I felt was for myself, for everything I endured silently, for everything I carried alone, for everything I invested in someone who gave me only fractions, for every night I folded myself smaller not to be a burden, for every smile I forced so I wouldn't lose what little I thought I had. I felt love. For me. Real love. Whole love. The kind of love he was never able to offer. I ran my fingers over the frame one last time and said softly, "I buried you today, Marcus, but the person I dug up was me." I turned off the lights, walked to the door, opened it, and when I stepped outside, something inside me unlatched completely. The night breeze touched my face like a gentle hand. It was cold but not hurting, dark but not frightening. It felt like freedom. My suitcase felt lighter, so did my body. My heart still hurt, of course it did. A woman's heart doesn't heal overnight. but the pain was clean now, a pain that knew it would heal. I closed the door behind me. That was the second burial of the day. The first was his body. The second was the version of me that always put herself last. I stepped down the porch stairs slowly, feeling the night wrap around me in a steady, reassuring way. And then, for the first time since everything happened, I smiled. Small, tired, real. Every woman who has survived what I did knows this truth. Some things hurt on the outside, but start to heal you from the inside. And if you've followed me this far, if any part of my story touched yours, let me tell you something, woman, directly into the heart you're protecting. You don't owe loyalty to a lie. You don't have to shrink yourself to fit into someone's partial love, and you never, ever have to fear starting over alone. Because alone, you breathe, you think, you exist again whole. And when you're whole, no one can break you. The truth didn't kill me. The truth returned me to myself. And now, finally, I get to live the life that was mine all along.